I'm Sam Jones, owner of the Glouster Athletic Club. Give you a brief history here. My father and my grandfather opened this athletic club in 1936. We're the oldest boxing gym in the United States right now. So many years, 84 years been here. We've traveled all around the United States over the years, amateur boxing and professional boxing as well. So we've been on some pretty big shows. But really what our program is about, what we like to do, this old coal mining area here. When they first started this, it's these small communities around here, Chansey, Glouster, Murray City, little small coal mining towns. Well, there wasn't, and back in those days, they didn't have TV. Most people didn't have a radio. So what they had to do, they worked hard in the mines, and on the weekend they had to entertain themselves, playing baseball, basketball. So they started the boxing and a weightlifting gym here. So that's been continued on all these years. I've been here since 1960. I was born in 1940, so I'm getting some age on me. When I was like eight or 9 years old, my father had the boxing gloves on me. So I started boxing. I was really young when I started boxing. And when I graduated from high school, he says, well, we have a lot of other things to do. Maybe you want like to take over. So I thought, well, I could be a few years to help out. Maybe somebody else can take over. But that's been 60 years ago now. So as long as my health holds up, I'll continue to open this up. And what it is, we have the poor school district now. Since the mines have closed, we have the poor school district in the state of Ohio here, out of over 600 districts. And that's not good, we know that. There's no money. Since the mines are gone, there's no money. Therefore, our students don't have the proper equipment. So what we try to do is, to keep up with the state's requirement, we put on boxing matches. We have a Trimble Township textbooks and supply. We have a group got together a few years ago. And so we'll go ask the teachers, what is your needs? They'll say, well, new whiteboards, computers, things they need in today's world. It's very expensive, by the way. Sometimes they need $30,000 or $40,000. So we'll have grant money. We, like I say, do boxing for books. We do golf tournaments. We play music, whatever we can do to give to the school. So what happens is that if we can't keep up the state's requirement, they will consolidate us with Athens. We love our neighbors, but we like have our own school. So that's basically, that's what we're all about right here. So we'll scan around these walls now, and I'll let you know some of the places, some of the boxers that's been here, and the places we've traveled all around the country and other countries. Looking on the wall, starting from left to up in the left, you'll see a gentleman up there, says Billy Fox. Billy Fox, I'm really so proud of him because he lives by Beckley, West Virginia. That's over 3.5 hours just to get up here. He would drive up there a couple, 3 days a week to train. And then we would go, and he was a professional boxer. So we traveled all around the country. On that particular match, he was boxing Hector Camacho, which is a 4-time world champion. And this was in New York at the Hall of Fame, where they induct people into the Hall of Fame. You had Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, those people were all there. They had 4 boxing matches to entertain them that evening at the casino. So I took Billy up there, and he boxed him. They thought Bill would last a couple rounds, but he didn't. He went 10 rounds and only lost on a very close decision. Well, when the match was over, he said to me, he's a real polite kid, he said, well, I hate it because we lost, Coach. I said, hey, you just went with a 4-time world champion. He KO'd Sugar Ray Leonard in 4 rounds, and you just give him 10 hard rounds. So that's enough to be said on that one. So we're really proud of him. This is Kenny Norton. He was a world champion. These are when we've been to the casinos. As we're coming across, there's Buster Douglas. Buster Douglas was a world champion. He defeated Mike Tyson. You can see I'm raising his hand there. Took our ring over. It was in McConnellsville, Ohio. That was in 1982, many years ago. So that was the show we were on. Here's George Foreman. This is out in MGM Graham in Las Vegas. I had one girl box for the world title out there. and George Foreman was there that evening. This fellow's name is Harry Aurora. Harry Aurora was a lightweight champ of the world from Youngstown, Ohio. I used to spar with him. He would be on a lot of shows we had. This is Larry Holmes up here. He's a world champion. This was a match in Philadelphia. And the lady with him is named Sue Mollett. And here's Sue over here. And she was like Billy Fox. She would drive all the way down here from Akron, Ohio. She was going to school at Akron College. And she would drive down here 3 days a week and train and then drive back home and then go to school the next day. That's dedication there. So I'm really proud of her. And you see she's number 9 contender. She's fought for the world title twice. Once in Las Vegas in the casinos in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And the other one was in not Las Vegas, but California is where we had her. This is Rod Bensonhaver. He was a World Boxing Federation contender. He's a good fighter from Chillicothe, Ohio. And there's David McNeamer. He was a heavyweight champion of West Virginia. You can see he trained here with us. There's Corey Tipple. He's one of our local champions. This fella here, his name's Gary Wolf. He was a West Virginia heavyweight champion as well. And he has now a gym in Parkersburg, West Virginia to help with the youth like we're trying to do here. There's Brian Comiches. He's our local boxer here. I've had him about everywhere. ESPN, he's been on Fox Network, so he's did a real good job. 21 wins and 4 losses as a professional boxer. He's now retired from boxing, and he works as operating engineers. There's Joe Frazier. This fellow here was a great fighter. He beat Muhammad Ali. This was one of our bouts. There's another one you might have heard of, is Sugar Ray Leonard. This is one of our shows. This show was in Las Vegas. Mike Tyson fought out there, and he fought Evander Holyfield. So they had the ladies' championship first, and then when our match was over, they had the men's championship. Well, that's when Mike Tyson bit his ear. Well, that was horrible. I mean, so he violated all the rules there. But anyway, this is Andrew Deshawn's this lady's name. And we'll scan around down here. Here's Jeremy Bates. And Jeremy Bates, he lives in Kentucky. And he was a heavyweight champion there. He's really a hard-nosed, tough guy. This is at the weigh-in at the MGM Graham in 1997. So that's when Tyson fought Holyfield. And then we fought for the ladies' championship. We'd beat this lady twice, but that night she beat us. And we had to stop the match in the 8th round. Drop down here. Here's Jeremy Bates. The guy's come up from Kentucky. He's to train. And he's with Andrew Galata. This guy, and this was over in Poland. This was the Polish champion. So this was in Poland, this match. Jeremy went over there, and he went 4 rounds, and he had an injury, so they had to stop the match. These guys here is my dad and these older fellows. Look, 1936, you see that. That's when it first started here. When they work in the coal mine, and then they put on their trunks, and they come in here and try to entertain themselves. So that's many years ago. There's Bernard Hopkins. This guy's a great boxer. He just retired a few years ago. He had many different championships as well. Here's Mike Shepard. He's a school teacher from Elizabeth, West Virginia. He trained with us for a lot of years. Mike did a great job. He had several bouts, and he also he won the world kickboxing. He beat a guy from Russia for the world kickboxing championship. That was great accomplishment for him. Moving around up here, you'll see Joe Frazier. He beat Muhammad Ali. He was a great boxer. This was in Philadelphia, where this took place. Get my head out of the road. This fella came down here. His name is Ray Mancini, Boom Boom Mancini, they call him. He's a lightweight champ of the world. He was a great boxer. He's announces now. You'll see him on Fox Network announcing boxing matches. So that's up my bar right up the street. I had a bar up here for about 40 years, right, called the Wonder Bar. There's Brian at one of his bouts, resting in the corner. This is Darren Abraham. This fellow lives in Clarksburg, West Virginia. He came over. He ended up being a champion in West Virginia later on too. So there's Jeremy again, boxing Holyfield, Evander Holyfield here, which Holyfield was a world champion. So you can see that some of them stepped up and really moved up to a top level in the boxing game. Here's a group of the coaches and two boxers here. This is Jerry Thomas is this fellow's name. He puts on a lot of promotions in the West Virginia area for many years. He has promotions over there, tough man, boxing, kickboxing. So he's been doing it for 40 years. Here's Joe Painiff. He ended up winning the West Virginia championship. He lives in Parkersburg. He's a great guy. He trained really hard. He did. Here's Buster Douglas. This is Buster now. He has a club in Columbus, works with the youth like we do here. And this is when he had a boxing match. We put one on, this happened to be in McConnellsville, Ohio. And you can see Buster knocked this guy down. I stopped the match here. It was in the second round. Fast forward from 82 to 90, he went over in Japan and boxed Mike Tyson. And nobody defeated Mike Tyson. He beat everybody. But he didn't beat Buster. Buster had a real good night, and he stopped him, knocked him on his rear end in the 10th, 11th round, and it shocked everybody. I think odds on that fight was like 50-1 in Las Vegas. So Buster, he upset the apple cart. Did a great job. We're proud of him for doing that one. And some of the guys here, here's our local basketball player. This guy, I played basketball against him in high school up here, next little town village up there, Corning. And name is Jerry Jackson. He played for Ohio University, graduated back in the 60s down there, but he played some professional basketball too. I forget who he was with as a pro. But anyway, that's Jerry, just a local guy, and we'd like to shine a little bit of light on him. He did a great job. You see this kid now, down from the plains, what he's done. I mean, it's wonderful. Here's one here, goes back in the 50s, before Hubert Bobo. And he played professional. He was with High State when they won the championship back in the 55, that many years ago. He was a fullback for High State, and then he played pro ball for several years. But in his high school record, he still holds the record for high school to this day. Think of that, all over the United States since 1955. And he scored 890 points. He did himself. Think of that. He scored 9 touchdowns in one game by himself. Now, I don't know, but they run the ball back. It's an all running game back in those days. Now they spread everybody out there passing, so very few people get to score more than a couple of touchdowns. There's a lot of other people involved in touchdowns in today's football. But that's amazing. I don't think that record will ever be broke. But he's Chancey lived in Chancey Dover boy down here. So Plains and Chancey did pretty good for on the football field. So that's pretty good for Southeastern High boys right there. We'll move over here for a minute. This fella here, he lives in Columbus. He had a box club. Steve Gregory, good guy. He works with the young kids up there, and he was boxing right there. He was rated about number 3 in the world in the middleweights back in the 80s, and he is fighting for the title. He got defeated, but that's pretty good to move to that level there. These are my kids. Right here's my family: Mike, Sam, and Kimmy. My children. Mike passed away, he had MS, and he died 18 years ago, 40 years old. So you're not supposed to outlive your children, but we never know what's going to happen. That's the reason why you have to appreciate every day we're here. You'll see here we have pictures on the wall of the old coal mining community. So we're proud of our coal mining communities here. There's one in Chancey, Ohio. When you go to the stop sign down there, that convenience store, you see what that was in 1904. That was a livery stable. If we wanted to come up here, we'd have to rent a horse to get up here. Think of that. That's how things have changed. Over there's a nice one in Murray City. That's in 1909. You can see they're having a parade down through the city. I'd say that's probably on the 4th of July. But the old streets, and you see how they've worked their way up throughout the years here. Coal mines. There's a train wreck right in the middle of town. There's a Ford dealership, 1917, right down here by the stop sign. It gets you a new Ford. So you can see, this is pretty interesting here. This is the original here. K.A.P. Hall, Glouster, 1905. And that's that building right across the street. And what they had over there was, well, you can see what it says here. Home talent play. Well, what they would do, just like high school plays were when we were in school, get together and put on our own show, and we were the actors. Well, that's what they would do. So I don't know what that show would be. It says fun on the podunk. I don't know what that one would be, but you could get in and see the show and get a lunch and everything for 25 cents. I thought that was a pretty good evening. Moving around here. These are ladies that trained here. We trained and we took around different parts of the country for boxing throughout the years up here on the wall. This is going back. This kid here's named Johnny Coy. Johnny won a state championship in 1980. I took him. We drove all the way out there in the wintertime to Davenport, Iowa, and he fought in the national championship. Muhammad Ali had his amateur kids, Joe Frazier. And they wondered what we were even doing out there. But he boxed 4 times with us out there, and we brought the trophy back here. He's a national champion. That's a real good accomplishment for a kid here to go against all your city boys and girls that are in those gyms constantly. Up here, you'll see here, this is a match here. This is a friend of mine. He and I traveled around the country kickboxing back all through the 70s and 80s. Dale Miner, he was a professor at Ohio University there later on. So what we're doing, we're working on kicks, practicing our kicks, because this fight was a fight, we trained for a fight in Madison Square Garden. That was a fight, was on ABC Wide World of Sports. So, and I fought a kid named Jose Cazedo out of Puerto Rico. He was a tough guy. I mean, he was Joe Frazier, sparring partner with Joe Frazier, so you know he had to be a pretty tough guy. But we lost on a split decision, 77 to 78. But that's what happens. So you don't win every time. But anyway, that's kind of shined a light on our club there, because that's at Madison Square Garden. There's 20-some thousand people in there. I mean, that's just huge. We do most of our boxing around the area at the high school gyms or National Guard armories back in that days. This has been a long time ago, 1975. You can see that. So here's some of our. This is my son here, Sam. He boxed. He's a Golden Glove champion. And then he played football here for Trimble. So I have a lot. There's Bert Hayes. He's Parkersburg, West Virginia. He was a middleweight champion over there years ago. We trained this kid here named Marty Dugan. He lived down by Rutland, Ohio, down by Pomeroy. Took him down to Huntington, West Virginia. They had a tough man competition down there. And Muhammad Ali was there that evening. So he got his picture with me. He won the tough man, so we got a picture with him and Muhammad Ali. Nice picture for him to put on the wall. This gentleman here, he moved to a different level, this one. Will Carpenter. Will, he played football for OU and a quarterback back in the 80s. And then he played professional football up in the Canadian Football League. Then he came to me and he was a real good athlete. He wanted to be football. Wanted to learn how to kickbox. So we started him kickboxing. And being a good athlete and that kind of condition he was in, it didn't take long. He moved it right up. Well, in this match, you see, he was 22 wins and 3 losses. He ended up being about 30 wins and maybe 4 or 5 losses at the end of his career. But what this one was about here says the Russians are coming. So I helped coach this team, and coached this team in 1995. You see here, yes, let me move over here. 1995, we picked 5 of the best, we got out there and picked 5 of the best kickboxers we could get in the United States. They were all full contact fighters, pros. It wasn't amateur, it was all pro fights. And the Russians brought 5 over. So You can see it says the Russians are coming. We fought in New Orleans. We won 2 bouts, and we lost 2 bouts. For the final bout, which I felt bad about this, I had a kid from New Mexico that trained hard. He was coming down for the 175-pound division, and the kid from Russia, he's just a young kid, but he made a bad mistake there. He went out and started drinking the night of the fight, before the fight, and he couldn't compete the next day. Could not compete. Boy, you ought to heard his coach going, "Oh my God, we brought you all the way over here. You have insulted our country," he told that kid. And my boxer said, "Hey, coach, what do you think's going to happen to him?" Boy, that coach. I said, "Well, I don't know. He gets back to Russia. He might end up in a salt mine, or I don't know what they're going to do with him. But they're going to do something with him because they're not going to let him get by with that." But that was horrible. Not only for him, but for our boxer that trained hard and wanted to compete. So that was a pretty big show there when you one country against the other country. You'll see here, this is Chad Blevins, which is upstairs now. Chad right now, he's a North American karate kickboxing champion. ISK, Karate Association. So he's the champion. Next month, I'm trying to get a match for him over in Indiana. If we get this flu up where we can start having shows again. But he'll be defending his title. So that's Chad there. Here's great fighters here. My father and those guys were years ago. Joe Lewis. Joe Lewis, my father's at that match. There he is now. Joe Lewis boxed this fella here. Now think about this. He TKO'd this fella in the 11th round of a 20-round bout. 20 rounds. Then later on they cut to 15. Now they cut to 12. And the other day I heard them, they're talking about it at a meeting, maybe going back to 10 rounds. Worried about injuries and this and that. Because it's in a tough game. You guys can see that one. Here's Jack Dempsey. He was a great champion down here. Up here's my grandfather. He played with the St. Louis Cardinals and Cincinnati Reds. He was with their team. And his buddy over here is from Nelsonville. You'll see there's Babe Ruth. He's with a local fella from Nelsonville, Ohio. Estel Crabtree. And he's with Cincinnati. But there's Babe Ruth on first base. So that's pretty good to compete. You can't get better competition than that. So they did a real good job. We're proud of these guys for being able to do that. Here's my mother in Jacksonville Trimble School. It's down by Kroger's down here. 1937. They had the championship basketball team, the girls. Here's some of the local guys when they first started getting ready for a match. This was in 1936 when they first opened the gym. And I think those guys, years ago, they got where they would get thirsty once in a while. So they didn't have any money, so you can see what they did. They have a still there. They're making their own liquor. Now we know that's maybe some of them didn't get to box that night. If the agents would come in, they might move them out of here, and they wouldn't get to box that evening. So they were pretty ornery. They worked hard in the mines. And if they needed something, they just took care of it themselves. There's Glouster in 1964, bustling community here. Couldn't get up down the street on Friday. We had bowling alley, skating rink, movie theaters. Lumber companies, 2 or 3 doctors and dentists. I mean, you just didn't have to go, not only this town, but Nelsonville and other towns as well. It was really booming. So it's sad for me today when being raised around here, and I'm going to be an 80-year-old man. I remember that. And these kids will never have any idea what this town was about and how much fun it was when you were young being raised. It's just better here now, of course. Nobody getting off work on Friday night. That's a big difference. Here's Johnny Bauer. This guy was a good boxer out of Zanesville, Ohio. He and I boxed on a lot of different shows. He's same age as me. Real good guy. He worked with the kids up in that area. Here's my mother and father right here. And there's my grandmother up on top. That's my grandfather Sam's wife. My grandmother Ethel's her name. Here's 1907. They had a big flood right down through the street of Glouster. You can see that one. Here's 1898. We like that one. That's really going back a ways. Ron, I don't know whether we talked about this or not. You see that Teamster they had wagon and horns going for the Teamsters back in those days. And they would go down to when the trains come in, you pick up a sofa or whatever you had, and they'd take it to your house. It was just like you had a pickup truck. It makes you wonder if when they started the truckers, fast forward 20 or 30 years, when they started getting the trucks out there, if they didn't use, that's a Teamsters Union, if you think about it, because that's what they called Teamster there. Well, that's pretty interesting. Here's when we boxed on this show, and this guy's a great fighter in the boxing, Roberto Duran. He beat about anybody. I mean, he was really a great boxer. I had one of my girls on that Deshawn, the one I took to Las Vegas. She was on that particular card and boxed that evening. But there he was boxing another gentleman. This was up to the Mountaineer Racetrack, up towards on the other side of Steubenville, Ohio. Here are these. I put this show on down. This is a heavyweight championship here. Dave McNeamer fighting Jeremy Bates. So that was a good match, sir. Those guys were both tough guys. You can see we have more than just boxing here. Because we went the history of our sports for the whole town here. And Stroh sponsored us in 1972 and 3 for the softball team in Athens, Ohio. We traveled all around, had a good time with that sport there, that one. Here's one of our champions here. This is Benny Whaley. And I teased Benny. This is what he looks like today. He hadn't changed. I said, Benny, he came in the other day. I said, I put your picture up here, Benny. And when I did, I could see the mice and everything else running out of this building. I said, we don't need to come in and spray anymore. Coach, I'm going to beat you up, he says. So this match here was we had a couple thousand people this show. This was a good one. We made some money for school. I fought this guy named Tommy Russell out of Zanesville. And he was a good pro fighter. And but that was a night fight. You can see we had the ring up on a football field down here. And it really had a big crowd on that one. I beat him that evening. And he later on, about a month later, he said, well, if I'd been in Zanesville, Ohio, I don't think you'd have won. He said, you had to have the guys with a pencil voting for you, he told me. Home cooking, he told me. So there's Buster Douglas here. And there's Sue again up there when she was boxing. This is our doctors since 1936 when he opened it. There was our doctors. Dr. Patton. You can see the other ones now here. Dr. Muntean, you might remember him from Athens. Davis he's now with the Cleveland Clinic, and he has a real good job in Akron, Ohio, with the Cleveland Clinic. So he's done a great job. I had him a championship boxer here in USA Amateur Boxing. Then I had him on the Ohio University boxing team. We had an OU team for many years. We trained down there, and we take those kids. Well, we went everywhere with them. And so anyway, he won the collegiate championship. I told him, he said, well, I'd like maybe want to turn pro. I said, hey, you're doing a great job. You won amateur tournaments. You have a lot of things. What you can do is help a lot of people. Being in the medical field you're in, you'll be able to save a lot of people's lives. So won't you give it 100% in that school? Yeah, he did. And he did that, and we're real proud of him to be able to step up with the Cleveland Clinic. That's a big organization there and a good one. So there's my stepfather up here. He played, they had a semi-pro team he was with. They traveled around the country playing colleges back in the 1940s. But I wanted you to take a look, if you can see this. Look at the center on that team. That fellow right there was 7'8". And you can see he's standing flat-footed, and you can see not jumping. Look where the rim is, and look where he's holding the ball. So he was a pretty good size man. And Spacey back for that day, because most people wasn't 6 foot, back in the 40s. Here's a local tie here. I used to play baseball with his father, Bill Romanowski. So he had a 3-4 time Super Bowl, played with, and he sent a jersey down here when he's playing with Oakland Raiders Super Bowl. So he's a local guy down here. He's his father, I'm not from here. This pictures. You can see these, all the different places we've been, all these different boxing matches, different places. Here's one. This is what it was when I was young, Jacksonville, Ohio, 1953. My wife put down the boys of Jacksonville. So we run the streets and swim in Sunday Creek, and it was a whole different world. You guys know when you was young the difference now. So these guys, me and this guy's the only one left. These other 4 guys are deceased. But here's a stock car race. See this? Me and my buddy built these stock car races. Took a couple of pop cartons and took wagon wheels and put on them. Took a broomstick, put 2 for the steering device, and there you go. And I told my grandfather we'd going to Akron, take us to Akron because we want to get in the stock car derby. He looked him over and said, "Boys, you got to keep them in Jacksonville." He said they only go about 10 miles an hour. He said those guys be 40 miles an hour, be down there before you even get started. Here's the different shows we've been on. See, Brian Kamicha's had him on there, and then some of the other guys we talked about. These are the shows that put on. They've been in the casinos where you see Wheeling Island Hotel, and where they put on a lot of boxing matches over in that area. Up here, you'll see the old ball players. This is a JT, 1956. We won the Athens County tournament. So all the boys was proud of that. And that old school down there beside the Kroger's, that's where we were. Glouster had their high school here. We were down there. Boy, it's a big rival when we come up here to play Glouster. Wow, next door neighbors. That was a tough one. Anyway, you can see the pictures on that one. Over here, here's a guy here, Jack Waldron, which is one of the guys upstairs. This is his grandfather. In Logan, Ohio, they were training for a boxing match in 1920. See, they're out in a field practicing because they were going up to Columbus and have a regular boxing match. So that's his grandfather's. So that's going back a ways there on that one. And this fella here, I'd go to nursing home and see him the last couple, 3 years. He lived to be 102 years old. He and his father, which they had a plumbing company here back in the 1920s and 30s. And when Dad and those guys opened this place in 36, they helped be one of the sponsors. So he was always a real nice man. So he got sick, but he lived to be 102 years old. And I'd go to nursing home because he really liked sports and liked playing music. He loved music, so we'd do that one. Let's see what we have down here, guys. Here's a fellow. This fellow just passed away here, named Steve German, and he's 6'11". I wouldn't let any of my students. I had to spar with him myself. I wouldn't let my students spar with him. He's just too big and strong. But he's a school teacher up in Zanesville, Ohio, and Crooksville, and he passed away last year. But that's when we were training, and that was 1976, training for getting ready for Golden Glove tournament. That one. This is a man here named Ernie Shavers. He fought Muhammad Ali and went the distance with him, gave him good 15 rounds. And we were going to bring him into Ohio University because I was coaching the OU boxing team back in that day. I was in 77, 78. I was going to do a 3-round exhibition match with him, and then we're going to have the amateur kids box. It never come off because it was in the wintertime, and it had a lot of snowing and going on in January and February, and they were afraid to try to put that show together, and you get several thousands of dollars in it, and then all of a sudden you can't have it. So we never did get that one done. But anyway, he came there and he got his picture up there of him on that one. This is as far as we go back here, because we like our ancestors and like the history of this town. This is my great-grandfather and 2 uncles. They were signed up for the Civil War in 1861. They were in the Ohio 63rd up here. And anyway, they fought 4 years and then come back here and raised their family here and worked in the coal mines. So that's really going back. Only have one picture of this one. You'll see that little small dogs, like a little small bulldog, and they have harnesses on them with a little wagon about that high. Now that dog hole mine was just about waist high and about as wide as this room in here. That's it. So they dig back there, maybe 100 yards or so digging. On your side, crawl back in there, put the coal in that. Then this dogs would pull that on the outside. They would empty the coal and send the dog back in. How about that for a day's work? I've had some tough jobs in my life, but if you're claustrophobic, that job wouldn't work. And how about air? Wow, there wouldn't be any air back in there. Think of that. But they were starving to death, people, and they had to do what you could do to make a living. That's it. Here's one I put up there because they used to. The mail would come in years ago, on the train years ago, and then they trained it to the bus. Where's the bus stopped out here in 1955, and you'll see this fella here and this one here. They had that particular day. They had some detectives riding on a mail bus. Now, whether they had something important there, or whether that was just standard procedure maybe for that day. I don't know about that. But here, if you can see this in 1908, there's looking down the street. Look at that crowd of people down there. That'd been the 4th of July celebration. And this one is right out front, 1945, after the war. When the war was over, they said, the war is over. Everybody hit the streets, celebrating, running, and naturally after that, World War II. So that one's right out front, right in the front out here. There's a brick plant right down here right down by the Dairy Queen. See a nice big, we had a lot of brick plants here. So did Nelsonville, brick plants. Mining and brick plants, there was a lot of work back in those days. Here's a buddy of mine, Fritz Bookman, and there's Fritz. He and I did the same thing here. There he is in Buchtel. He's on his mule delivering the paper. I was in Jacksonville. I had old Molly, my horse, and I delivered a mail on the horse, the messenger. Now, I only got by with that. That was 1951, you see that. I only got by with that for about a couple weeks. My grandfather said, Sammy, park that horse. I'm getting too many complaints because you're a kid. I'd ride right through the front yards with it and gallop on down the next. It didn't take me long to deliver the paper. I found when I parked Molly, that job got a little harder. I'm carrying her around on my back. That was a whole different game. But this one, you guys heard about this one. See, I have names of all these people who were in this coal mine when that mine blew up, exploded. 1930, 82 men died right here. And if you look at this picture, there's like 13, 14-year-old, just young boys in there. They go to work for their dad in the coal mine. One lady lost like 2 or 3 of her sons and her husband. I mean, think of that. It's horrible. And there's my grandfather. I'd always go with my grandfather. He pitched baseball. And then he coached the local teams after he stopped playing. So I'd always tag along behind him. So here's some pictures up here. You see this is Chancey Dover down the Chancey School. A lot of different players on there. Over here, here's a guy here. They called me about a fight. It was an ESPN fight. So we like to take fights on TV. Shines the light on our club a little more when you get on national television. So this was up in Pittsburgh, ESPN, and that Don King promotion had the show. They had this kid was 6-0. I mean, he'd won these last 6 matches. They had him lined up for some big matches. So I took Brian Kamich up there to fight him. They thought they were going to have an easy night with Brian. You see, Brian hit him with a body shot there, and then, there he tapped him up on, and there he went on his rear end. Brian defeated him. Oh, man, you ought to heard him screaming. About like he did when Billy Fox went the distance with Hector Camacho. He said, that country kid come on up there and beat you up. He said, well, that kid was a good fighter. See, sometimes they think if they get you and you're from a country, they can just walk around with their hands down and do what they want to do. You get out there and jump right on them. I know when I was boxing, when that bell rang, I want to be first. I didn't wait around. Boom, let's get out there and get busy. Let your opponent know that you can punch, and you're here to compete. Not just start running and let them build up their confidence. So I always have my fighters, when that bell rings, they're out there, boom, right now. Like letting a rabbit dog out of the trunk when you're going hunting. So that's what we did on that one. Here's my aunt, Norma. That's my mother's sister. This is 1947. See, they graduated here. There's my other aunt, Margaret, and there's my grandfather. And my grandfather, see, he was like 84, 85 years old in that picture. See, he looked young. He held on for many years. So anyways, that's the 1947. We'll go over here for a second. Here's another 1947, only this is JT. That was Glouster School there. This is Jacksonville Trimble down there by Kroger store. My stepfather, he was in this one. So that was our class in 1947. Here's our football team in 1957. We played, and I had a lot of buddies on here, but I look at that, it's kind of sad to me because I think there's like 30 players on there and like maybe 18 of them now deceased. But you know what? When you get like my age, 80 years old, you just got to realize you're here a very short time. Enjoy your family and friends every day. Here's our Little League teams back in 1970s, 72. I coached that for many years. Here's my grandfather in 1938. There's another Jacksonville, and that's 1923. That's all Jacksonville playing, these guys. Here's one at Glouster, 1913. They get together and play baseball. See, that's the only entertainment they had. Baseball and baseball was the big game, and boxing. That was it. Like I say, you entertained yourself. And all these pictures are just pictures of Joe Louis and all the great fighters that were around years ago. You guys know about this because you're in business. They brought this in here to me, and there must be a couple hundred pictures on that. Different pictures when we were boxing here and there and in the ring and out of the ring. And when you back up, and this looks blurred right there, but when you back away from that to the other wall, it shows me in a boxing stance like this. I said, how do they do that? So I don't know how they do it. You guys, how do I don't know. They take all those pictures. Then you can see this guy's different collar in it. And then when I have a blue jacket on, and I'm real clear over there. That kind of boggles my mind to see what's amazing the things they can do in today's world. So over here, on this wall right over here to the left, you can see where our ring's set up there. We set that up at Nationwide Arena a lot of times throughout the years, have boxing matches. There's our boxing ring and our trailer. We put that in. We'll train and we take that thing and set the ring up, and then we put the shows on and we'll tear it down and come back home. There's Dale Miner, the fellow up there that I was kickboxing on the other side with. Fast forward to now, that's just about 10 years ago. He lives in Mexico now. And you can see he and I are not in the shape we were when we were younger there. But he has a club over in Mexico. So he works with the police departments over there and teaches self-defense. So you remember Doc G down at OU? There's a bando system. That's a Burmese self-defense. So we work in that and we train that. Let me slide down this way. Right here's you'll see these two ladies up here on the wall. Sue Mollett, the girl I was telling you about. See, I took her out here. She fought for the world title here. That was in Atlantic City. And then I took her to this fight. It was out in California. So, Fresno, California. And then we were on this show here. Remember I said Tyson, Holyfield and Tyson. So we've been on, and Hector Camacho, and then he fought De La Hoya, a guy by the name of De La Hoya. And we were we had some fighters on the undercard of that fight. And here, I don't want to miss out on this. I don't want to miss out on this lady right here. Ellen's her name. She goes with me to all the boxing matches. Everywhere. All these years she's been involved. She's a judge. She worked a corner. She knows all about boxing. She knows the game. There was in Las Vegas there, George Foreman, he took a picture with her. She didn't ask him, he come over and asked her. I said, hey, that's my bride. Now you better be careful what you're trying to do here. I started teasing him. But he's a real nice guy. So that's and you see how those girls, Glouster girls, 1956, they got their legs up. These are cheerleaders, these three. They got their legs up on the parking meters, right in the middle of town going through. We'd go through and honk a horn at them. You know, we was from next town down. They said, well, we ought to spend some more time up to Glouster. I told my wife, I said, those Jacksonville girls didn't sit around with their leg popped up like this. She said the only reason they didn't because they didn't have parking meters. That was her answer. So that was a pretty good answer. You guys know this guy? I fought him in 1983, Jim Pancake. Big Jim Pancake from Nelsonville. So he and I boxed in 1983. Put on a show. It was a nice show. I made quite a bit of money for the several $1,000s for the school, and I paid Jim for his fight because his was a pro fight, and then I give him my money that I made back to the school. So anyway, that's what we've done through all these years. Like I say, we love the kids here, and we want them to have their own school, and we want to keep them off the street. A lot of kids will live on the back roads over here, and they come in, and we try to help them out, put them in a van. I go to Parkersburg, we stop and eat. They have to be real respectful. After they box, they have to shake hands, thank the promoter for inviting us over there. So I want to I want them to be respectful and stay in school and respect their parents and their friends. So that's what our boxing club is about all these years. So we'll just keep plugging right along.